Welcome to this week's Future Toolbox podcast. We explore the Z to A of life skills, where each letter stands for a topic and essential tool to help you get ahead in life. Meet Jules and Mark, creators of the multi-award-winning Future Toolbox, and enjoy their straightforward approach to creating growth mindsets that help people turn their dreams into realities. Whether you're a teen in education, a parent, a teacher, or part of a community group, start creating positive habits from today.
Welcome to our latest Z2A podcast with me, Jules, and Mark from the multi-award-winning Future Toolbox.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody. As always, this is where we pick a letter and a topic and discuss how you can use our tools and techniques to improve your own personal development and life. So over to you, Mr. Kennedy, to let us know what this episode's letter is.
This week's letter is M, and that stands for making connections. There's lots involved in making connections. So this could be friendships. It could also be networking, which means meeting people who can open doors, give you new opportunities. It could be connecting with people that you already know, but you maybe don't connect with. So, for example, you could be in school and you could see loads of people moving around in the school environment and you never talk to them. Or likewise, you could be in the workplace and work in quite a busy, big office and you see those same people and you just walk past and never really speak to them. So it could be somebody you're familiar with, but you don't actually have a connection with.
It could. Something else that just sprung to mind when you were talking about that. These days, more and more people are working from home. So the ability to make connections or networking isn't there all the time. So sometimes for those people, it could be doubly important for them to be able to make connections.
I agree. I used to find this in the early days when we first set up the Future Toolbox, as it was then. And I remember the first week of working from home and I sat there and I thought, what am I going to do? I had a plan. I knew what I was going to do. But there was nobody to sort of manage me at first. There was nobody to tell me what to do. And then when I did something, I couldn't go to anybody for feedback and say, was that good or was that not so good? Or what should I do with this? Of course, you were working full time at the time. So I couldn't just pick up the phone and ring you and say, oh, by the way, I know you're really busy in the middle of a meeting at the moment, but I've just done this. It is quite difficult to actually work on your own. And as you say, that's becoming the norm now. More and more people are working at home, which means you sometimes lose that connection and you lose that ability to bounce ideas off people.
That's right. Working from home has its absolute bonuses and reasons for doing it, but that ability to meet other people isn't there and then can become a bit lonely, I think. However, in saying that, going out and meeting new people can be very scary. I think so. And I remember the first times when you mentioned when we first started up at Future Toolbox and we used to go networking, I did used to find it really, really nerve-wracking walking into a room of other business owners and people and not sure who to speak to. And honestly, I think I looked like a startled rabbit.
It's that moment when you walk into a room and it seems like everybody else knows each other and then they all turn around and look at you. That's really scary, isn't it? It probably doesn't happen like that, but you sometimes feel it. Or you walk in the room and of course there's somebody there who wants to greet you and make you feel really welcome. It's welcome to the room. And you're, So it can be really, really scary. Also, if you flip that back into the school, we mentioned the school circles where people tend to move a lot in different directions. So people are going to lessons, people are in the same classes, but you bypass people all the time. And school can be a scary place. Certainly since the days of the lockdowns that we had and the restrictions where people were put into bubbles or having to study from home, now all of a sudden everybody's gone back into that environment. And it is a few years down the line, but I'm noticing that students are still quite affected by that. It's affected their confidence and ability to go out and talk to people. And then, of course, you take that a step further, you leave the education system and you go out and get maybe a part-time job or some work experience. That's really scary because now you've got to interact with adults that you never had to interact with before and they're all grown up and different.
And often going back to school after a break, that can be a bit nerve-wracking because you haven't seen everybody whilst you've been on that break and people change in that short period of time and you can walk into your classroom and there may be some new people in there or some of your old friends that you haven't seen and that can still be a little bit nerve-wracking. However, in saying that, we've said how nerve-wracking it is and how scary it is, but we also talk a lot about getting outside your comfort zone and building a network of good, positive and well-informed people, whether that be in school or within your working environment, is really, really key to becoming a well-rounded person and a person that people would want to get to know.
I was actually just thinking that myself. Who do you network with? Because you don't want to network with all the negative people that constantly moan about things and maybe talk about people behind each other's backs and whatever, because that's just going to lead to a world of negativity. So you're right, yeah, find those people that are going to add value to your life. It might be somebody who's really knowledgeable on a particular subject that you want to become more knowledgeable on. For example, if you want to learn more about a particular career or a particular business idea, then you need to go and hang out with the people that are good with those ideas and talk to them, ask them questions. That's just reminded me also of schools' careers events. We go to loads of enterprise days and enterprise weeks in schools, and our big message was to the students is go and talk to as many people as you possibly can and just ask them some questions. It might be the person who's standing in the corner you think has nothing to offer you at all. They work for a company that maybe does something that doesn't interest you in the slightest, but that might be the person to go and talk to because they may give you the most valuable piece of information. And you still might not want to work for them. You still might not want to work in that industry. You still might not want to find out about it, but go and find what makes them tick. That's always really, really good to expand your knowledge, but also to build your confidence because you're talking to somebody new.
That's very great information. And I recall many years ago, we found a networking group called the Trainers Hangout.
Ah, the Trainers Hangout.
Do you remember that? It was brilliant because it was a network or a place to hang out with like-minded people within the training industry. And we met some amazing people who we then hung out with and built connections with and did a lot of collaborations with as well.
Yeah, met some really good friends through that as well. And we're talking a lot about business here, but it also does lead to good friendships. And if you have a good friendship with a person who can help you in so many different areas, whether it be business, whether it be sport, whether it be a hobby, an interest or whatever you're doing, if they can improve you, they can move you forward. And that's where it can maybe open doors for your future.
Absolutely right. And one of the biggest people that we met networking that's opened so many doors for us, but also has been phenomenal in building the Future Toolbox and Brain or Shine, Sally Wood.
Of course, yeah.
How brilliant has she been to ourselves personally, but also business-wise as well?
Of course, Sally's one of our favourite people. And you've heard her talk on previous podcasts and you've met her through the Future Toolbox. And that came from completely unrelated circumstances. So you joined a charity, Breast Friends, Northamptonshire.
Yeah.
Started working on their committee, joined their committee, and Sally was a trustee of that charity. So she was absolutely nothing to do with the Future Toolbox, nothing to do with our business. We didn't meet her at a business network meeting, but through various different conversations, we managed to build not only a friendship, but also a business partnership. Then she suggested that we set up as a community interest company, and that's how the Future Toolbox CIC was born. It was an unrelated meeting where you came together, we all came together, and all of a sudden it's completely changed our lives. It certainly opened a few doors for us, didn't it?
Yes, so making connections can come in various different ways and guises. So it's not always about going to a formal networking event as such. And also within school, you can join various clubs. And it could be something that you're very keen on, like drama or something. And then you meet somebody who could introduce you to somebody else who could give you an opportunity that you've been looking for.
That reminds me of a guy that we met a few years ago in a summer school. He was doing what he classed as a really, really boring job during the summer holidays. He was working at a garden centre and just basically lugging stuff around from compost to bricks to anything that a garden centre sells. And one day a customer had asked him if he'd load his trailer with some compost, which wasn't exactly his dream part of the job. But because he was really polite to the guy when he was loading the stuff into his trailer, he struck up a little bit of a conversation. He noticed that the chap in the boot of his car had loads of virtual reality equipment. And the lad had a conversation with him and said, I'm really, really passionate about virtual reality. This is something I want to get into. And the chap said, well, I actually run my own company. So they're having this conversation, the deal's done, all the stuff's loaded in the trailer. And as they carried on the conversation, he said, well, I'm actually looking to employ somebody. So here's my number. Give me a call later. I know you're at work at the moment and maybe you can have a chat from it. Long story short, this lad managed to line up an interview to work on what could be his dream job. And this came from a conversation that he had, that he was doing something that he really, really didn't enjoy doing. It was just a means to an end. But one conversation, a chance meeting, led to him opening a massive door for something that he wants to do in his life.
That's a lovely story. It's like anything. It's about taking those little small steps and opening small conversations. And there's that saying about big oak trees coming from little acorns or something like that anyway. So it's about maybe just striking up a little conversation, maybe just a simple hello and a smile to start with. If you see somebody quite regularly, you think, I really want to get to know that person, but I'm not sure how to do that. Just smile, say hello. How are you? I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. And then just very, very slowly building on that relationship. You could ask them, how's your day going? A very, very simple little question just to try and start that conversation.
You could also be very British if you're based in Britain listening to this and talk about the weather.
Yes.
People always talk about the weather. Oh, it's a lovely sunny day today. Oh, it's a bit cold, isn't it? It's something like that. It just opens the door, opens a little bit of a conversation.
That's right. Small gestures can show that you're a friendly person by taking a little bit of an interest in them, as opposed to straight away trying to say something about yourself. And that could start the acorn growing to a big oak and big blossoming into a big friendship.
That's very, very good. Also, when we worked in recruitment, working with young people going to their first jobs, job interviews and so on, I remember really encouraging people to build that rapport as soon as you walked in the door. So your interview starts as soon as you're within sight of the building that you're going for the interview with. And I would always encourage people to not just have the conversation with the interviewer, but to start by the person they met on the door. So it could be a receptionist. Hi, how are you doing? Wow, how long have you worked here? This is a really impressive building. Or I see you work with so-and-so because it's on the wall, or something along those lines. It builds up a conversation. That person might have an influence on you getting the job. There's also that moment where you meet the interviewer and you're really, really nervous, and then you have to walk to a room. It could be a very long walk to the office where you're going to be interviewed in, or something along those lines. That's again a time where you build up the conversation. It's good to know a little bit of background about the company, so maybe you could drop something in there, or perhaps you could have a conversation about generally stuff that we've just mentioned. The weather. Have you had a good day so far? How are you doing? Are you busy? Sometimes it's a little bit of idle chat, but it just opens the door to go to the next stage of that relationship.
Yeah, it's about breaking the ice, I think, isn't it?
Oh, breaking the ice. Yeah, icebreaker. That's a good one.
Yeah, and once you start the conversation and start talking, then your nerves will calm down a little bit.
Of course, we talked about a lot of face-to-face connections there, so walking in a room or having a job interview or being in school and actually seeing somebody. But don't forget, there's also ways that you can connect with people online. We live in this massive digital world now where we can communicate with people from the four corners of the planet, so to speak. Always think about, how do you communicate online and what do we put online? We've done podcasts on our own brands before and talked about the negative stuff that can come back and bite you. And if you're that type of person that's putting things online that perhaps don't paint a great picture of you, that can also come back and bite you as well. So perhaps you could be the positive communicator. And again, reaching out to people online, if there's a particular area or a particular something that you're interested in and you're following that person, reach out to them and talk to them and ask them what makes them tick, or how did they get to where they are today if they look like a successful person. How could you learn something off that person? So you can watch them, but you can also reach out and connect with them. And again, making those connections is equally important online as it is face-to-face. So you never know what door that's going to open in your life.
That's very true. This day and age, everything is online. So that's a very good avenue to explore making connections with people that have got the same interests perhaps as you have and what you're trying to strive to do. It's a great way of broadening your connections throughout the world.
Absolutely. So get out there and get connecting. You could also start by going to our website, which is futuretoolbox.co.uk, and connecting with us. We have loads of tools and tips on there. We're on social media, of course, on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok. You can find us on YouTube and connect with us personally on LinkedIn, because we are
everywhere, globally.
We are globally everywhere. It's easy to connect across the world through all those channels. We look forward to catching you in the next episode. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you then.
Bye for now.
Thank you for joining us for the Z2A of Life Skills with Jules and Mark of the Future Toolbox. Don't forget to head over to their website, which is futuretoolbox.co.uk, where you can find lots of free resources, plus a host of books in the store, as well as subscribing to the membership site. Follow Future Toolbox Instagram, TikTok and Facebook at Future Toolbox, and subscribe to their YouTube channel too.